And I am so excited to introduce our guest speaker today, Bobby Darnell. He and I don't even know how long ago we met. It's
at least 3 or 4 years ago.
Several years.
Yeah.
He is a like-minded data geek like me, which is fantastic, and is very passionate about client relationship management. So with that, I will turn it over to you, and thank you so much for being our guest speaker today.
My pleasure. Thank y'all for having me. Yeah, Courtney and I met several years ago, and we sort of swim in the same waters, being construction CRM consultants. So when she asked me to, if I'd be interested in speaking on this, I'm like, heck yeah. And my excitement was greater, and I'm qualifying this, when I first accepted than when I started diving into my material, only because I got the feeling it's like, wow, I can go into a presentation on CRM and 99% certain I'm usually the one that knows more about it than everybody else in the room. Now I'm doing a CRM presentation to CRM people, so I sort of feel like the person that's been assigned to go to a lawyer convention and tell lawyer jokes. Am I going to have anything that they haven't already heard? So that said,
you are in safe hands. This is a very friendly audience. They're fantastic, very inquisitive. So I think that you will be well taken care of. But it's fun to be around like-minded people.
I appreciate that. And let me start off by saying that I didn't get a lot of A's in high school, but one A that I did get was in speech class. And the number one rule they taught us was do not apologize. No one knows your material. No one knows what you're going to speak about, but I'm going to break that rule only because, again, when I started pulling this stuff together, I Frankensteined what you're seeing from 4 different presentations that I do. And so I was switching slides around at the last minute. So if we get a little hiccup along the way, then please forgive me for that. But basically what we're going to walk through is a 2-day, I've simmered down a good portion of a 2-day presentation that I do to my clients called Building New Business. And typically my clients are entities in the construction industry, architects, engineers, contractors, subcontractors, building product manufacturers, that except for the building product manufacturers, they don't have full-time business development. So I'm a business development guy going way back. And so everything that you see is filtered through that lens of business development. And I'm going to go into a little bit of my background only because I don't want it to sound like I'm beating my chest. Oh, look at me. But it is a little bit of a unique background. And from the very beginning, it deals with data, and CRM, they're nothing without their data. So that said, let's move forward. And of course, my PowerPoint's not working. There we go. Okay, this is the outline for my 2-day class. And what we're going to do is we're going to simmer it down to just these topics. Now, the introduction, I call it painful but helpful, and hopefully you'll see why. I start off, and I'm going to try this. I start off every presentation with the magic trick, and I know we got 45 minutes, so I'm going to be mindful as I can of that. And the reason I do that is because, I'm going to get my little timer here. I got interested in magic in grammar school. And without a doubt, it has been the single biggest thing that has helped me in business apart from what I've learned in school. And the reason that is that when I got into magic, the guys who mentored me would never tell me how to do a trick. They would make me figure out the trick. And they would say, you know, also never do a trick twice because it's so simple, people will figure it out. But I'm going to try to pull that off with a little card trick here. And the reason is that as you look through this, hopefully you'll be able to tilt your head a little bit and see something that might fit, not exactly as I present it, but present it as, and you know, you can look at it and say, well, I can see how that concept will work over here. So real quick, hopefully this will work. This is a regular deck of cards. I don't know if y'all can see it. It's not a trick deck. So this is not the trick that I normally do, but because I have to stand up, but hopefully we'll be able to do this and make it fast. The story is that what I've got is I've got the 4 jacks. Can y'all see the 4 jacks here? Just put them back to back like this. Jacks are very much like magnets. I don't know if y'all know that. If you take 2 jacks that are the same and you try to push them together, they're going to repel each other. So real quick, I got the black jacks on one side and the red jacks on the other. I'm going to push the red jacks together. Ready? And they become black jacks. Let's try it again. I'm going to take the black jacks. I'm going to push them together. They're going to repel, and they become red jacks. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint how to do this. I can take the red jacks and turn them this way, turn them into black jacks, or I can turn them this way. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, what are these? These are the red jacks. I'm going to take the red jacks, and they become black jacks. Okay, now think about that. I will show you how to do this. But again, the reason that I like to start off with this trick, because when I do this presentation live, we will whiteboard this. And I have done this for 20 plus years. Not this trick, the other one that I can't show you. And I'm in a room full of engineers and contractors and architects, very highly educated people. And we'll whiteboard this and say, how did I do that? And to date, no one has ever gotten it. And they've come close, they've had some good ideas. But again, the purpose of the exercise is to get people thinking, how can I take what I know and solve a problem with it that may not seem like an obvious situation? So let's move forward, and we'll get to the example after that. And I've got this in case the trick didn't work, and we still don't know if it'll work or not. But again, business development is bringing a new business. We're going to define that here in a little bit. But I call this my Home Depot challenge. I'm sharing this with you, again, not to beat my chest and say, look at me, but this is an example, a real world example of me looking at a situation and using the way my mind works when I'm thinking about magic to find a solution. I wanted to get a meeting with the CEO of Home Depot, and I wanted it in a really bad way. And so I had to think of a way. I knew picking up the phone was probably not going to work. So we'll get to that later, also closer towards the end. Again, introduction, painful but helpful. I'm going to breeze through this. When I get to this part, I always start off by saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. I did not have any idea this is what I wanted to do or was going to do for a living. I went to the University of Georgia, wanted to be a broker for Merrill Lynch. I only saw those guys playing a lot of golf and driving BMWs. I said, sign me up for that. I had no idea about the calling people at supper time for 6 or 7 years. So anyway, I go across the street to Merrill Lynch. I want to come to work for you. Al Thornton, the manager, said, go across the street, get a finance degree, and come see me. I'm about 6 months from graduating. I come back to him, and I had played golf with the brokers, and so he remembered me, and he said, oh yeah, he goes, I don't hire finance majors anymore. And I'm like going, what? And he said, I would rather hire a history major, an English major, and I can teach them what they need to know. Finance majors think they know everything, but I told you I'd hire you. Can you wait 6 months? We hire twice a year. I go, certainly. I was playing in a band at the time, and I'm going to date myself here for all you youngsters, but there was a band down the hallway in our rehearsal space called REM, and they were starting to get famous. I said, well, if I'm not a famous rock star in 6 months, I'll go to work for Merrill Lynch. And the fact that I'm talking CRM today tells you how my music career went. So anyway, 4 months into the 6 months, the market crashed and the offer was rescinded. And so I go to work for this company called Construction Market Data. My roommate worked there. And I'll tell you a little bit about what they do. But basically, they were a construction information service. I say were, they still are in business. They're now called Construct Connect. But what we did was we tracked commercial construction. And what I mean by that is, if you look here, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving, but this is pre-internet. So let's say Courtney was an architect. I would call her once a month and just have a 5 to 7 minute interview with her. Say, Courtney, what's going on? And she would say, well, Bobby, we just got the Lambert High School. It's going to be 2 stories, probably about 220,000 square feet is what we're looking at now. And just give us some headline details. We would put that into our database, and we would slice and dice and sell that information to everybody. I mean, building product manufacturers, furniture people, service people, general contractors, building product manufacturers, and anybody you could think of. So and this is what a typical project would look like. This came straight from an old bulletin of ours. So you can see here, we've got the owner of this North Metro Church is the North Metro Church. The owner's rep is the architect. We've got the civil, structural, mechanical, plumbing engineer, electrical engineer. And as the project developed, we developed these relationships with the architects and sort of a quid pro quo that they knew by talking to me, I'm going to put this into our little bulletin here. and it's going to go out, and we're going to help facilitate that bid process. So it was a public, a local product. It was going out every month or every week. And so as we built the company, once we became national in '96, then we could sell the information to anybody. I mean, building product manufacturers. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But as we started, we built other companies. We built a company called Architects First Source. We bought RS Means. We bought a lot of companies. And my role was going into the companies we bought, transitioning them to CMD, going into new organically grown territories, meeting with planning and zoning, meeting with the different public entities, meeting with the architects, and just developing relationships. Now, part of that also was I was neck deep in all these associations. We were strategic partners with every single entity, association that had pretty much anything to do with commercial construction. And then towards the end of my career there, once we were national, the founder, my boss, the CEO, came to me and said, I got an idea. He goes, I want you to go head up a team and go meet with the top 120 architects and develop a relationship. We would find out about their marquee projects, the projects that appear in the Business Chronicles. Everybody would find out about that. But we wanted to know about the 4-story fit out of 191 Peachtree Center that no one's going to know about for a new law firm. And so what I did was my team, we went to these top 120 architects and we sat down with them and we said, and this is what their business development, sales and marketing people said, look, we're going to give you our data. A single user password, and this goes back to like '98, was $110,000 a year. I'm going to give you that, and I'm going to show you how to use that to bring in business. What I want in return is I want everything. I want a wholesale list of every project you have. And not that it was anything that I did. We were basically giving away umbrellas in the rain. It took them a while to get their arms around it, to understand how is this going to help us? And so we had some meetings where I said, give me an example of a project you're chasing. And they said, well, we're going after this large church in a different state. And so I get my laptop, I type in a few keystrokes, and I go, okay, this particular denomination, the last 10 jobs that they did within the surrounding 3 states, they hired the same architect 9 of those 10 times. And they're like, holy cow, mind blown. Maybe we don't want to go after that because it's going to be a lot of money to go because it was such a huge project. So then we started showing them other ways to use the data. When you go to set a bid date, you can look into the system, and the architect by contract tells the owner, we can design this project to meet your budget. So again, this goes back to the quid pro quo. They would work with us because they knew we were facilitating the bid process. If it doesn't come in on their budget, then the architect works for free by redesigning, and they don't want to do that. So we showed them, you can go into the system, and let's say you want to pick, you're looking at the 20th or the 22nd to put this job out to bid. On the 22nd, in the Metro Atlanta area, there's 68 jobs out for bid that day. On the 20th, there's only 42. So put it up to bid on the 42nd, on the one with 42 jobs, and you're going to get more bid interest. So I'm happy to say we batted 1,000 with these people. But the reason I share that is it gave us insights into the largest companies out there, the billion-dollar-plus designers and manufacturers, how they do their business, and what that involved was also learning their CRMs. So these were some of our old customers. And CRM in those days was basically Act and Goldmine. So my team was responsible for pushing data to 40 separate laptops with 40 separate Goldmine CD-ROMs and making it fit. And so that's where I became the nerd that I am today on CRM. I just love it. Part of my responsibility at CMD was making sure the data was accurate in what we called making the Big Mac taste the same. And what I mean by that, you buy a Big Mac in San Diego, it tastes like a Big Mac on Long Island. So as we grew the company, we had to make sure if we said a project was this way in Atlanta, it had to be the same way in Seattle. So I was responsible for all the data quality. So I've worked with, you name it, any CRM, not any, there's a million of them, but I've worked with most of them. And so that's where again, I became sort of the nerd that I am. I love CRM. I know what an effective and proper implementation can do for a company. So that said, I've always said that a successful CRM implementation and program has less to do with which system as how the system is used. So Courtney and I met. I was working with an engineering firm that had no CRM, and I just couldn't believe it. So I led them in bringing in CRM, which is Cosential, and Courtney took the baton from me, and when I left, and you know, has been running with it. I guess you're still working with them, maybe, Courtney?
Off and on.
Okay, good. And so that's how we met. So I did ask her, I said, is this Cosential oriented? Because I can speak to that. She said, nope, we're pretty agnostic here. So I still believe I've worked, you know, I've come in untangled systems, and I've come in and organically started from scratch. And let's pick out a short list and let's move forward. So anyway, there I am with CMD all these years, loving it, thinking I'm going to retire and die here. I walk in on my 8th wedding anniversary. We sold the company in 2001. And during the courtship, the new owners were saying, oh, we love you guys. Nothing's going to change. And that's when you dust off your resume. So I walk in on my 8th wedding anniversary, and by lunchtime, I'm walking home going home with my belongings in a cardboard box. I was fortunate in that I learned a lot. I had earned stock in the company. They gave me a great severance package, so I wasn't panicking. And my wife says, what are you going to do? I said, I'm playing golf for 6 weeks. And that lasted 3 days. And I just went nuts. So I hung out my shingle, and I started Construction Market Consultants in July of 2001, basically doing what I was doing, working with companies, helping them build new business, working with CRM implementations, helping them develop processes for prospecting, for marketing, and such as that. There, I know that was a lot, and it took way longer than I thought it would. So let's jump into the CRM. Best practices, I put best practices question mark. I don't know that these are best practices, but they're pretty good, and they've proven themselves over and over again through the years. Now, what I tell my clients is that, CRM, again, I implement everything from a business development perspective. I would say, when I say I come in and untangle existing CRMs, that's probably less than 15% of what I do. Usually it's starting from scratch, telling people, no, I hate to disappoint you, but Outlook and Excel is not a CRM. So I tell them, you know, we all know it's customer client relationship management, but from a business development point of view, it's also from a prospect relationship management. Usually there's more prospects in a CRM than there are clients. So that's a large part of hopefully what you're going to see and be able to glean from this. Now, a couple quick quotes here. I love comedy. I love, when I'm in the car, I'm usually on the comedy channel. I don't know who the comic was that said this, but it made me laugh. They said, oh, you called me on my cell phone. I don't use it for that. And then another comic I thought was pretty smart. He said, calling an iPhone a phone is like calling a Lexus convertible a cup holder. The phone is probably the least used function of that. And the reason I share that is my clients do not like to use the phone. People do not like to pick up the phone. So we have to bring in new business with the phone not being probably the first two ways to communicate. So that's a large part of what you're going to see. So let's just take a quick look at typical timeline. Everybody sees this. So what we do is from the very beginning, when you find out about a project or an opportunity, that business development, that marketer, that company, that president, that principal, whoever, they want to go from here to here as soon as they possibly can. So we're going to talk a couple little things here about that. Defining your terms. I do have a sheet where I list a lot of different business development definitions from Forbes and all these other people, and they all are very similar. But for me, business development is finding new customers and keeping them. And that's the R part of the CRM, is the relationship aspect of it. A lot of people don't realize that it's cheaper to keep a client than it is to go out and find a new one. So again, we're going to hopefully see some new techniques on here that will might be able to take away with you. And when I do the presentation, this is the food pyramid. This, you know, it's all about the following, with CRM being the foundation of everything in my world for building new business. It's all about the CRM. You've got to have that system working, or the top other portions of it just aren't going to work as well. So for our little bit of time, we're going to focus on the CRM part of it and the prospecting. And again, forgive me if I sort of jump back and forth between the two on these. Okay, I do a lot of word pictures with my clients. I love golf, if you haven't picked up on that yet. So if you know who this is, kudos. If you've seen what he's doing, then kudos. If you don't know, since we don't have time and everybody's muted, this is Jordan Spieth. Now what he's doing is CRM, believe it or not. That's called a yardage book. If you watch them, if you've never noticed them, you'll see it now that we've talked about it. They keep that in their hip pocket. When the pros go on tour, like they go to Augusta for the Masters, they show up on Tuesday, they play around on Tuesday. And that yardage book has all the holes diagrammed. And so what they're going to do on hole 1 is they're going to mark where their tee shot went. And they're going to mark out to the side what club they used to go to the green on their second shot. They get to the green, they're going to mark where the ball landed, and then they're going to just track everything like that. And the reason they do that for the practice rounds on Tuesday and Wednesday is when Thursday comes around, they've got some data to reference of what they're going to do next. And so again, that's a large part of CRM. And I tell my clients, when you've got Joe's information in his Outlook, Sue's information in her Outlook, then you got this Excel document here that gets loaded up to the T drive that nobody sees what everybody else is doing. And everybody needs to be able to do that, to take advantage of what person hit this shot, what person hit that shot, because we're all going towards the same goal of bringing in new business. So that said, what I try to do, I'm just going to kind of walk you through what my typical implementation is. And a lot of times it's easy to get people to call me just because they're like fishermen. They're not catching any fish. So if you walk by a fisherman and say, "You caught anything?" They go, "No." Go, "Oh, have you spit on the worm?" They'll spit on the worm because they'll try anything, even though I don't know that it does any good. I use that because as a kid, a golfer told me to spit on the worm, and I did. So anyway, so I like to ask them questions that I know or I'm confident they don't have the answer to. And it's not to zing them. It's going back to the magic trick to get them to think, you know what, I really should know the answer to that. So I'll ask them, categorically speaking, what are your top 25 prospects? Where do they come from? Categorically speaking, how did you learn about them? Where do you stand on the stranger to improved contractor with your top 10 prospects? And they don't know. They don't have a clue for that. And I can get into how we data point that in a little bit here. In your current pipeline, what are your most promising opportunities, this, that, and the other? And what's your batting average? I mean, there's all these questions, and you probably have way more than I do. And again, it's not to zing them, not to embarrass them, it's to get them thinking, I really should know that. And then I'm not fighting somebody dropping this CRM for this CRM. I'm usually fighting them letting go of Outlook and letting go of Excel. And it's the same questions for prospects. You can only see maybe customers and prospects. Those are the same questions. People don't realize that. You hear them say, "I got a meeting with a client tomorrow." And they'll go, "Oh, how long have you been their vendor?" They go, "Oh, this is actually a prospect." And something as simple as that, something as confusing client and prospect, then we need to get your arms around CRM here. A couple of other little things that I like to ask them: what's your incubation period? And they go, "What does that mean?" I go, "Well, don't you track how long it takes from you entering a project to when you close it? Is it 12 months, 9 months, 6 months, 14 months? They don't have a clue." And I think that's something really important. I'm a big believer in, if you're not measuring it, then you can't improve upon it. Some companies only do public work. Some companies only do private work. But if they do both, private work is usually better, higher margins. So if we're chasing both, let's make sure we're tracking what our win ratio is for each vertical there. This third one seems pretty easy. I worked with I had a project with a big company. And I put this in here because it's so simple. It took them 3 days to come up with a list of who got a holiday basket. And I just could not believe that. It's like making sure we're doing okay on time. So that's a little, tag them, get a holiday basket. Let's compare them, how much money they brought us. You know the drill. You should be able 2 clicks away at most from just being able to answer all these questions here. You're visiting Acme Development at 1212 Peachtree Street. What prospects are within 5 miles of it? I live in Atlanta, and if you're familiar with Atlanta, we have an interstate that goes all the way around the city perimeter. It's called 285. I live outside of 285. There's OTP outside the perimeter, and there's ITP inside the perimeter people. I'm an OTP person. If I'm going ITP, I want to meet as many people as I can because our traffic is famous. So with my CRM, I can download, on my app, I can sit there and it'll tell me where I am, and I can set the range for 5 miles, and this is going to start pin dropping accounts near me. Okay, if I got a meeting at 10 o'clock, it goes to 11. My next meeting's at 1. I'm going to do some drop-in visits. So again, business development, I want to be able to pull that out and see it as soon as I can. Okay, categorize. Now you always hear about the number one thing in real estate is location. When I say categorize, I don't want my CRMs to be implemented so that when the person sits down, they feel like they're looking at the controls of a 747. I try to strip it down as simple as I can, so it's maybe just a notch above what they're used to seeing in Outlook, and then have them come back to me and say, hey, you know what, can we add this? Can we add this? Because I've been involved with some systems that's just like, holy cow, why do you even have this on here? And we all know the 800-pound gorilla in this space is Salesforce. Salesforce to me is an amazing product. It's an amazing product. It's an amazing product if you're a Coldwell banker and you have 2,200 offices with an average of 35 agents at each office, and each agent has 17 listings, and each listing has 125 photographs. Salesforce. But for the people I work with, it's a little much. But I've come into situations where they're using Salesforce, and it is just so gunked up with stuff they'll never use that I don't want them to sit down, and I don't want them to have to feel like, oh my gosh, I just made a phone call. Now I made a 3-minute phone call, and I'm going to spend 7 minutes updating that phone call in my CRM. So we like to do a lot of drop downs. I just want them to click as little as possible. I don't want them to feel like they have to go, it was a dark and stormy night when I called Courtney, nothing's going on, call back in 2 months. We don't want that. So the reason I like to categorize is that I like to filter. So that's where we find out the answers to these questions. How do we know who we're chasing, what we're chasing, where do we stand? And I want to be able to see that in a simple and easy report. Okay, segue, pretty clever, huh? Courtney, I don't know if I can get to my, we couldn't in the pre-trial, pre-part of it, but I was just going to jump over to my CRM. But if we can't do that, I'll just visually tell you about what we do here. In my demo version, I've got like 150 contacts. So what I want to do is I want to be able to discern between 150 accounts, accounts. How many of those accounts are clients? So let's do click. I've got from 150 down to 78 clients. Okay, 78 companies are our clients. How many of those clients are active versus inactive clients? Okay, if we had the CRM, you could click and you could see, okay, we only have 17 that are active clients. The rest are inactive clients. Of those clients who are inactive, I want to get some more business. I want to turn them to active clients. So what I typically do is I go through there and I'll filter those inactive clients into clients who are inactive because we never want to work with them again. So I've got a feature on that takes that number down to 28. So here's 28 people who know us. We've worked with them in the past. It was a good relationship. It's my duty to reach back out to them and engage and start blowing on those coals. So that's one of the filters that we do on there. Another filter that we do is account source. Where did I learn about account? So I do two. I do account source 1 and account source 2. And people may think that's a little too granular. Didn't you just say you like to keep this simple? And I do. And the reason I do account source 1 is always a drop menu. It's going to have things like trade show, the Atlanta Business Chronicle, association, and such as that. The reason I do, now trade show is a pretty broad category, especially if you do 10 different trade shows. So my account source 2 is a free text field. So what I do then is we'll go, hey, of the last quarter, we got 42 of our new accounts from trade shows. And now we can go back and we can look which trade shows did we really get those. And these are all real world examples. I had a client that did 10 trade shows. And when he said, let's just put trade show on there, I was thinking, well, I didn't know that they did 10 at the time. I said, don't we want to just put the specific trade show? And he says, no, because we do so many trade shows, the drop menu is going to be a mile long. And so then we did that, and a year later, he finds out that he gets all these leads from trade shows, but he couldn't tell you which one it was. And so then we said, okay, well, let's do a little subcategory where we can say trade show was ICSE, it was ULI, it was specs, it was whatever. So we do that. And then another thing that I like to do, that if we can jump to the demo, I'd show you, and is most CRMs will have what's called an email report. So when you do an email, you can send out the blast, go in there and see. The one I use will tell you if they opened the email or not. And then we filter that into the process of the business development. We'll do a push. We'll go in and see who did not open the email. And then we'll use the template. We'll tweak the template so that the title, for some reason, the title didn't grab them. And then we'll go in and we'll tweak the title. And then we can track and see which templates are working for us and which templates aren't. Another thing that we do, I was working with an engineering firm in the Northeast. So again, most of my contracts aren't just the CRM implementation. It's implementing the CRM and then helping them develop business development processes. So I'm a big believer in the templates. We have a menu of templates. We find out that I'll use Lindsay, for example. Let's say I met Lindsay on LinkedIn. I've got that in there. So the template that we like to use will say, dear Lindsay, I saw your profile on LinkedIn, so I'm pulling that template in, and it was your title, Vice President of Business Development or whatever, that prompted me to reach out to you. I'm trying to learn the process for becoming an approved vendor and then we put the name of her company in there. I'm Bobby Darnell, I'm with such and such engineering, we do this, we do that. It's real simple, it's real effective, it goes in and out, and you can track who's opening it, who's not opening it. Those who don't open it, and then we think, okay, we got to tweak this a little bit. But where I'm going with this is that with this engineering firm, they weren't opening it. Now, they're a commissioning engineering firm. I don't know if you know what that is, but they come into buildings and they audit their systems. So if you have a big, 20 or 30-story building, and they can come in and audit your HVAC and say, you got about 3 years left on this thing, you might want to start looking at this. So the people they're trying to reach out to, typically in their LinkedIn profile, has the word lead, they'll have sustainable design, or they'll have net zero buildings. So real quick, we jumped in the CRM, we created a data field called specific interest, we peppered that with that, we wove that into the template, and then we're off to the races. Click, click, we send out 30 new emails a day, and then the response rate went through the roof. So you want your CRM to be nimble, most of them are, but again, hopefully you're looking at this saying, you know what, I see where he's going with that, maybe it'll work well for this. Another thing that we like to do is most CRMs are using AI now, artificial intelligence. The one I use is after I've made a couple calls to Courtney, a couple of emails to her, it's going to tell me the best time to reach her today is between this and this. And it's like, that's pretty sweet, because even if you're sending out emails, it doesn't take a lot of time. I want her to open it. I don't want it to get buried under all the emails she might be getting about touchless thermometers and all the other spam everybody's getting out of the COVID thing. I get offers for touchless thermometers quite often. So if you need a source for that, I've got some. So that's a little bit. Let me see how much time we're doing. How we doing on time, boss? Pretty good. Okay, let's keep going.
About 10, 15 more minutes.
Okay. All right. So since we weren't able to jump to the CRM to see that in real time, hopefully those little vignettes will help you out. I'm just going to show a couple little techniques that we use for on the prospecting side of things, because that's where if your company is embracing CRM for the first time, the pushback that I get, and I'm pretty confident y'all get this too, is that, okay, here comes Big Brother. You're going to come in, you're going to want to know every time I breathe. And so one of my little Twitter handles is called the CRM Whisperer. And metaphorically, I tell my clients, I'm going to come in, I'm going to massage your temples, and I'm going to tell you it's going to be okay. And so if you can show them how to use it to build the business, then the salespeople, they're the ones that usually push back on it. Oh, I don't want to do this. I like Outlook. So if we can show them ways to do that. And one way, I'm going to just breeze through these quickly because I don't know how pertinent they are to most of y'all, but a lot of this is public information. You can go, this is Gwinnett County. It's the county next to mine. It's the largest one in Atlanta. If you're building anything in Gwinnett County, you've got to fill out a developer permit. So I don't know, again, if you can see my mouse, but right here, there's a developer. There's a designer, there's the address. I can put this into my CRM. It's early. This is real early, but I can track it that way. So public information, this is the county I live in. I can go look for rezonings. I can look for clearing and grading permits. So if they're getting a permit for clearing and grading, if I'm a specialty contractor, the steel contractor, the concrete contractor, that's a great source for me. Individual lot permits. Again, lots of information. This is what we used to do in the old days at my job at CMD. As I'm traveling around opening these new offices, I would have to go to the planning and zoning. And we opened Phoenix. I drove down to Tucson, met with the planning and zoning person. They had great information. They had what's called an environmental impact study. So before you even think about putting a shovel of dirt, you got to fill out one of those. I get the name of the developer, this and that. And so I had to convince them to send me these each month. If I sent you 12 prepaid FedEx envelopes and sent you the money for lunch, would you do this for me each month? And they would go, yes. So this information is readily available, and it's a good way to do it. Here's just another little technique that I do. Holiday greetings. And the reason I do holiday greetings, Independence Day is a good one, Memorial Day, Labor Day. It's a 3-day weekend. A lot of people take time off before or after to leverage that extra day. And so I'll send out a little email that'll just say, hey, I hope you have a great 3-day weekend. Here's to the second half of this year being better than the first, or something like that. It's sincere, but also I get a lot of these auto responses. My job in business development, I need to make contacts. I need to make people. I need to find out decision makers. I need to find ways to contact them. So I've hidden all the real stuff. Everything else, the responses are genuine. I'm not here. Here's my cell phone. I'm not here. Reach out to this person. I'm gone. Here's another person. Please contact this person. So I'm adding to my database. I'm adding to my CRM contacts at that company that can help me bring in some business. Another thing that people don't realize is their email signature. I focus a lot on prospecting in the CRM, again, because that's the foundation of most of the implementations that I do. It's brought in the company that Courtney and I both work with. It was business development. They had 15 business development people. Everybody's doing their own thing. So that's usually the way it gets introduced into the company, is through the marketing, the sales, the business development team. So logos are great, but when you're reaching out to somebody for the first time, you want your email signature to be nothing but text, because more often than not, a company that's getting an email for the first time will say, okay, here's an email. We've never gotten one from cmconl.com before. And if you've got your logo embedded in that, it's going to say, but this email has an attachment. It's out of here. It won't go through. If you have it all text, it'll go through. Now, the next time you can send one with your logo, send one with an attachment, because it's registered. We've gotten an email from this domain before, and it appears to be safe. And then also, I like for them to be able to grab all my information and copy it and put it into their CRM. We want to make it as easy as we can for them to do that. Next up, we talked about this. This is just a screenshot from a real company, a real client. The way my system works, it can say, okay, the best time, when's the best time to reach this person if I have to make a call for today? And it ping pongs between the email and phone. Email tracking, this is a screenshot, real people. This is from my own company. We also do recruiting. So we did a little blast on recruiting. And then we find out these people open the email, so then we can call those. These people did not open the email, so guess what? I'm going to send them another one. So that's another way to leverage your CRM. I get the feeling, probably not in this group, but the people that I do, the opportunities that I do work with, that I come in and I'm untangling a CRM, is it's a lot like Word or an Excel. Everybody says, yeah, I know Excel, I know Word, but I guarantee you, for me at least, there's stuff Excel and Word does that I haven't even touched. So the same with your CRM. Ask around. I budget 4 hours a week, every single week, to just talk shop. So if you at the end of this presentation, you say, could you explain this a little bit more? I'd be glad to do that. Okay, now we're going to go back to this challenge here as we're wrapping this up. I wanted to get an email, a meeting with the president of the CEO of Home Depot. So I thought about it and I did what I did. And now we get this. I go to my mailbox and I get this. Dear Mr. Darnell. Now, Bob Nardelli was the CEO at the time. This came from Frank Blake, who became the CEO. He says, I'd be interested in talking with you. Please contact my assistant to set up a mutually convenient time. Okay, here's my challenge, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But how did I do that? How did I get that meeting? And this is going back to the magic trick, which I'm going to show you here in just a second. Again, the idea is to, how did I get this meeting with the CEO of, at that time, the 7th largest company in the world? And so I'm going to show you. Bob Nardelli forwarded your letter. So obviously I wrote him a letter, okay? And now I'm going to show you how I got that letter in his hand. Is that, here's my little letter on my little homemade letterhead, and I blocked it out, but it just says a little bit about my background. And I had this idea. What it was I walk into this paint store down the street from us and to get some paint. And there was a little acrylic brochure holder there from, I'll go ahead and tell you, from Sherwin-Williams, okay? And what that little, I picked it up, I'm waiting, and I'm looking at it, and Sherwin-Williams had this marketing program for all these subcontractors. You see them everywhere, the white van with the 10 ladders on top. And it was highlighting to them, this is what you need to do to market your service. They want these guys in business. They want their business growing so they can sell them more paint. Well, at the time, I was working with a company that did a lot of work. This is a commercial contractor for Home Depot. And I thought, oh my gosh, every time I go into Home Depot, you see the little whiteboard, this Saturday, how to caulk a tub, or this Saturday, how to tile your bathroom. They had all these little do-it-yourselfer seminars. So my idea was, let's go on the other side of the store to what they call the pro desk, where you've got these contractors that are finishing basements, that are adding sunrooms and doing small commercial work. And let's do the same thing. I've got the material. So Home Depot, you pay me and I'll come in and I'll do these presentations for you. So that was the idea. And he thought of enough of it for me to have the meeting with Frank Blake. So how I got him the letter was I mailed it to his house. And so you won't think I'm creepy. I'm going to show you the PS. I put here, PS, I hope you're not upset by me mailing this to your home address. Research is part of one I've done my entire career, as I often use the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Cooperative Authority database, which is a public database, to locate property owners. And I gave him a link to it. So you can find out anybody's address if they have a deed. And so he liked it. I had a great meeting with Frank Blake, and they didn't do it. The main reason I say they didn't do it was that Nardelli, and this may be why he passed along my letter. He was on his way out the door, and Frank Blake was in the process of becoming the CEO. He goes, I like this idea. He goes, we'll get back to you. But anyway, the point of that is if you're having a challenge, tilt your head, think about it a little different way, bounce it off of somebody else, and there's typically another way to get your foot in the door. I'm going to wrap it up. You can't tell if you're winning or losing unless you're keeping the score. That's what CRM is all about. You want to be able to tell where you are on the timeline of your projects, the projects you're chasing, your opportunities. Where do we stand becoming an approved vendor for Walmart? Where do we stand becoming on the invited bid list for ABC Architects? You want to be able to do that and just with a click or two. And so that's my presentation. How am I doing here?
Perfect. Right on
40 minutes. All right, now I'll show you the trick. This one here is not as cool as the one I can't do because I have to stand out, but it is kind of cool. Okay, these are real jacks. See the black jacks? Okay, I'm going to push them together like this, blow on them, and they become red jacks. Okay, this is how you do it. Oh, I'm sorry. I had one of each. Red becomes black. Now, obviously, I didn't turn them the way I showed you because I can't even do it when I'm doing it slow. Okay, watch this hand. In my right hand, that's the jack of spades. Okay, I do this. The jack of spades is in this hand. So what I do, I'm going to exaggerate it here. You bring them up, and then you just switch hands. I'll do it again, because even when you do it slow, it's bring it up like this, and I switch hands. but you can do it really close. Blowing on it just creates a little diversion. So the other trick is a little bit better, but still, hopefully that's pretty cool enough so that you can start thinking, wow, how can I get over this hurdle? I need a dashboard that does this, but it needs to do this. And then I've got a couple of other things that we ran out of time for. I'd be glad to show you one real quick, and I'll end up with this. I got a current client that their challenge is the business development guy. He's going to chase the project, and everybody's going to know about it. It's going to get updated. And this is an engineering firm, $800,000 project. Our PM's going to be there for 14 months. The PM's on the job 3 months into it. The owner comes to him and says, hey, we like what you do. Can you also help us with this? It's just a little $20,000 gig. So yes, we'll do that. And that $20,000 gig never sees the light of day other than through accounting, but they want to be able to attach that to the owner, the client, and have that in the CRM. So what we did is we just created a new layout. Once it gets to close one, we created a new layout in the CRM that has data that the other jobs don't have. It's almost a pseudo project management aspect of it. We took their spreadsheet that they have to fill out to get the job number, and we put it into the CRM. So it goes to closed one. Now we just flip the layout. Here's the new layout. We're taking it to the next level. So that's just a little example, real world, that you come up with a problem. They couldn't see how they could do it. And it's like, oh, well, let's just take a look at it. And just, we were able to figure out a way to do it. So hopefully I've shared a little bit of something that you can find a hook and take with you. But again, if you have any questions about anything like that, if we got time now, I'll be glad to answer some questions now, Courtney.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to unmute yourself and ask Bobby a question, feel free to do that, or you can drop it in the chat window and I can ask it on your behalf.
Kept looking over here.
I was taking notes while doing that, or while you were going. And, oh, just a minute. I love the way that you worded, like, can you answer these in 2 clicks or less? Like, that was a great kind of prompt. What is kind of your top 2, 3 reports or stats or analytics that you think every company should have? Like, I know you gave the examples of the incubation period or public versus private, but that's kind of very specific. Like, what overall for our industry, what 2 to 3 stats should they have?
Well, stat-wise, again, it's going to depend on what their role is. But I'll share with you, obviously, the pipeline. Where do we stand in the pipeline? Now, one of the things that I do that sort of addresses that is most CRMs, they come off the shelf, and as you work your way through the pipeline process, it's got a built-in formula. So if you're at this, and it's $1 million project, there's a 20% chance you're going to get it. So it puts into the revenue 20% of the million. I don't do that at all, because I've seen too many companies that come in and they're doing these revenue projections based on the percentage chance of them winning that. And it's just crazy, because you don't get 60% of the revenue because you were close. You get none. So that's one thing we do. We wipe out all of that. And so when we do a revenue projection, it's based on, and people may not like this because it's not a formula, but we put it in there as a subjective number. So in other words, if it's a project that's early in the timeline, but we've done 7 other jobs for this owner, I'm going to put this at 70, 80%. We're going to get this one, as opposed to the system telling me because it's early, we're going to put it 20%. So our expected revenue is $200,000. That doesn't make any sense at all. That's one. Real case scenario, got a client now that has the CEO is calling the business development VP who's in another state every single day. And I go, that's crazy. So what we did is we created a report so that that person, the CEO, can click on that report and see the notes, the actual notes that the person's putting in there, and that's cutting down. I can see that the person's busy. Look, when you're selling $20 million contracts, you're not going to see, the meter flipping every day of jobs coming in, but you got to know that that person's staying busy and staying effective. And so that's part of it, making sure they can see what they're doing email-wise. That's a report. and then making sure you can just take a peek at the notes. You don't want to have 30, call Courtney, left a voicemail, call Courtney, left a voicemail, call Courtney, left a voicemail. You don't want to do that. But if you call her 3 times, maybe put one in there then, because you want to see that you're reaching out to Courtney. But again, who answers the phone these days? Have it where you can check the email, check the progress that they're making on that. So that's 2 of my big ones. And then probably another one is just where are we getting our leads from? People just don't track that as effectively. If they do, it's too broad so that you can't really drill down and sharpen your dollars on your marketing to, like I said, the trade shows. Should we invest a bigger booth in the next trade show that gave us 70% of our leads, as opposed to showing up at 10 different trade shows, which is what this company did, having a little 10 by 10 booth. And when we showed them that, it's like, holy cow, let's drop these 2. Let's get a 20 by 20 booth at the one that gives us the most, the big bang for our buck. So hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, I like it. No, I was also taking notes for the recap. Any other questions from participants?
Well, if you think of some later, Courtney's got my information. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer them as best I can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all of your insights. And the magic trick was way cool. I'm going to practice that on my kids. So I appreciate your insights and all of your perspectives. I'll send you over the recap so that you can look at it before I post it. And thank you to everybody who called in and participated. Next month, the first Wednesday of the month is our marketing call, and our CRM call is the second Thursday of the month. So be sure to register for those. It's the same number as you called today, so you can use that again. And our guest speaker next month is Katie Johnson with KPFF, and she's going to be giving a perspective from the marketing database coordinator, which is really fun since she's hands-on and is kind of responsible for the CRM at her firm. And then the marketing call is Mercedes Thompson, and she's going to be talking about client-focused cover letters. So hopefully you can join us next month. Thank you so much, Bobby. I appreciate it. You guys have a good week.
See y'all later.